Hi, welcome back. I'm going to do a big video, so if you don't have the patience, you can get lost right away. It's called Discharge of Contract. Now, let me first begin by taking the side of Pappu against the system. Who's the system here? The system is the university, the examination paper setting department, the syllabus department. Why? I'm going to talk about discharge of contract. I have noticed that discharge of contract is usually asked as an essay question. It's usually even asked as a short note question. But it's such a vast subject that it should be broken into smaller parts, and questions can only be asked about those smaller parts. But for example, we spoke about voluntary non-fit injuria. It's one of the general defenses in tort. I was surprised when a Pappu called me on the phone crying bitter tears, saying that the question that came up was explain all the general defenses of tort, including voluntary non-fit injuria. Who sets such an examination paper? You can say name the general defenses and explain one of them. The question should be name the modes of discharge of conduct and explain about one of them. That's fair. But the question is talk about discharge of contract. How can you do that? It's like, an essay question on write the story of Mahabharata, write the story of Ramayana, write the Bible. It's discharge of contract is a big subject within a subject. Having said that, Pappu, you and I have a task to do. I have to see that you touch the finishing line without giving up your breath before reaching the finishing line. So take a pen and paper and start. After the formation of a contract, the next stage is reached, namely the fulfillment of the object of the parties. When the object is fulfilled, the liability of either party under the contract comes to an end. The contract is then said to be discharged. But performance is not the only way in which a contract is discharged. Alright? So you will write by explaining exactly what I just spoke. Contract ho gaya, what next? Contract karna hai. So the next, after the contract is in place, it has to be done. The contract has to be done. And performing in the contract is not the only way to discharge the contract. I have to help you understand the word discharge here. In a hospital, you go there and you have malaria. When will you be discharged? When your malaria is over. You have typhoid. Same. Okay. But malaria का इलाज होने के बाद ही discharge होता है, ऐसा नहीं होता है. What are the different things that can happen? You can die. How? Because you may also be having AIDS. You can die. How? Because the hospital may not have taken care of you properly. Your parents can discharge you saying the hospital is not looking after you. There are various other ways to discharge you from the hospital even before you are cured. Similarly, in the Indian Contract Act, completely doing the contract is only one of the ways to be discharged. There are other ways of discharge from a contract, and that is what the essay question is about. So, first you will write, after the formation of a contract, the next stage is the fulfillment of the contract. Okay. When the terms are fulfilled, then the contract is said to be discharged, but performance of the contract is not the only way for discharge. You begin by touching on this essence. Now, what are the modes of discharge of a contract? What are the ways in which a contract can be discharged? This is what we are going to talk about. Number one, by performance, which we spoke about a bit earlier. Perform the contract and you're discharged. Now remember, performance of the contract is an easy word, but it is covered under right from section 31 to 67. In one way or the other talks about performance. We saw that in an earlier video about performance of contract. Another way to discharge, which is very easy to remember, is by impossibility of performance. It's not possible to perform it anymore. The contract has been signed, everything is legal, but it is no longer possible to perform it. Then there is a discharge. Point number 3, by agreement. Now what is agreement to discharge the contract? We'll talk about it a bit more, but let to tell you something. You remember the other video where we said, somebody said bring jalebi. Okay, the other party said, okay, I'll take your jalebi. Then this party says, I don't have jalebi, will you take gulab jamun? If the other party agrees, then that is called agreement by novation. A new contract to replace the old contract. That is agreement. Point number 4 is breach. I have this cheap thrills playing in the background all the time. The 4th way to discharge is breach. Breach of a contract is a way of discharge from the contract. It doesn't mean the parties go scot-free. There are consequences for all of this. I have the difficult task of compressing this into an essay. Oh God. Alright, let me talk to you first about the easy one. I will talk about the easy one first. Don't go by this method. I'm just trying to finish the easy one first. Impossibility of performance, defined in section 56. Section 56 lays down a simple principle that an agreement to do an impossible act is in itself void. For example, an agreement to discover a treasure by magic, being impossible of performance, is void. Okay? There is something called subsequent impossibility. What could be the example of this? Subsequent impossibility means it was possible at the time of writing the contract, later it becomes impossible. How can this be given to you by way of a simple example? Right, Navratri is going on and you're all happy and excited and you have bought those cheap tickets to go and dance all night. You paid 50 rupees, 5 rupees, whatever. And then for your bad luck, the cyclone hits you. Something like cyclone Titli, which is coming in Odisha now. And it blows off the stage. And for 9 days it pours cats and dogs. And it's flooded everywhere. Okay, this is an example of subsequent impossibility. Feel free to put this example. The organizer is not bound to organize your dandiya because you have that khujli to go and dance. Why? Because it's impossible. Did you understand? So Navratri starts tomorrow. Everything is in place today. It's looking possible. You've also done your setting at home and all is green and rosy and hunky-dory. But for your bad luck, hailstorm and rain and thunder and the gods pour punishment on earth. And for 9 days it's wiped out. It becomes subsequently impossible. So an impossible contract need not be performed. The organizer is discharged. It's also called act of God. Compensation for loss through non-performance of act known to be impossible or unlawful. You can pause if you're bored. I'm not going here. Alright, impossibility, it's a vast subject. There is something called frustration.
So part 2?
No. I don't know. There is a subject within impossibility called frustration. It's not the frustration that you experience. Usually, it's not even the frustration you're going through right now because you're not understanding what I'm saying. It's a technical subject which has many sub-subjects, and I'm frustrated at the thought of having to teach you all this. But let me try. So, impossibility that you understood. Initial impossibility, जो impossible है, वो पहले से ही you're discharged. It's void. Now, what is void? Oh God. Void मतलब खारिज. Void मतलब no need to do it. Void. I'll have to do a separate one on this because voidable contracts is a big subject. Anyway, if it's looking already impossible, like a contract whereby a Babaji tells you he'll cure you of cancer. Okay, by doing what? By giving you pani puri. There was such a Baba. I heard that he will bless you and tell you eat pani puri and you're cured of your cancer. If this was a contract, it is void. Subsequent impossibility, I told you about Navaratri. Now there is something called frustration. Specific grounds of, I'll just tell you the points. Destruction of subject matter, change of circumstances, non-occurrence of contemplated event, death or incapacity of party, government or administrative legislative intervention, intervention of war. So all of these, there is more. Application to leases, this is all under frustration. You are done, Baba. So under frustration, all of these points, sub-points are listed, and these are all a part of impossibility by me of performance being a mode of discharge of conduct, of contract. I'm going to stop this here. Come back for my next video, which is going to continue the subject discharge of contract by agreement. Bye bye.